Welcome to today's Explainer. Look, I want you to treat this like a private, high-level mentorship session. You're an ambitious executive, you've got your eyes dead set on the CEO's chair, and you're ready to make that leap. But to get there, we need to completely rebuild how you operate day to day. Today, we're unpacking some incredible insights drawn from the real-life journey of a homeless teenager who became a monk, went to MIT, and eventually became a CEO. We're going to translate those hard-won lessons into a concrete executive playbook. So, let's just dive right in.
There's this mountaineer who scaled Mount Everest twice, and he gave this exact, chilling piece of advice. Don't look up. If you look up, the mountain can break you. You see, above 8,000 meters, climbers enter what is literally called the dead zone. Oxygen drops, every single step takes a massive toll on your body, and your judgment just starts to falter. Well, as an executive, looking at your massive 5-year corporate goals all at once, it does the exact same thing to your brain. It completely crushes your momentum and drops you straight into an executive dead zone.
So how do we fix this? Here's our agenda for today's playbook. We'll be looking at the Everest illusion, architecting attention, managing elite energy, and the resilient leader. Because to lead from the very top, you absolutely must master your inputs, optimize your energy, and keep your perspective.
Okay, starting off with part 1, the Everest illusion, and how we actually survive that executive dead zone.
The big secret here is you have to stop pretending you can climb the entire mountain in one go. I mean, whether you're restructuring a whole department, overhauling company finances, or launching some massive new product, from a distance, it looks impossible, right? The trick, and really the absolute necessity for a top-tier CEO, is breaking those macro goals down into really small, specific, almost boring micro-actions. You make one strategic decision, you pause, you gather yourself, and then you make the next one. This literally, physically stops your brain from panicking, and it keeps you moving forward even when the pressure is at its absolute highest. Moving right along to Section 2, Architecting Attention. As a future CEO, your focus is the absolute first resource you have to ruthlessly protect. Think about this idea of correcting after the click. It's kind of like an airplane on autopilot. An airplane doesn't actually fly in a perfectly straight line. The wind constantly pushes it off course, and the autopilot just makes thousands of tiny little corrections. Your attention is exactly the same. Instead of pretending you'll never slip up, like absent-mindedly checking your phone during a deep work session, just intercept the interruption. The moment you click an app out of pure habit, catch that reflex and immediately attach a positive microaction to it. Take a deep breath, grab a sip of water. You just want to gently correct the course, not crash the plane. And this brings us to a really fascinating concept that perfectly explains why you feel so incredibly drained by, say, 2 p.m. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. Psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik noticed that waiters could remember complex orders perfectly, right up until the bill was paid. But once the bill was settled, the memory just vanished. Why? Because the human brain literally fixates on unfinished tasks. So for you, the modern executive, every single unread email, every vague Slack message, every meeting that ends without a clear next step, those are all open loops. And they're just sitting there, draining your cognitive bandwidth in the background. So we have to make a vital shift from open loops to closed loops. Look, as a leader, you simply cannot leave your inbox open all day. That's reactive, not proactive. Instead, you need to designate 2 or maybe 3 fixed windows for batch processing. Let's say 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4:30 p.m. Outside of those specific batches, your time belongs strictly to your deep work. Batch processing completely clears out your cognitive space. It allows you to focus on that high-level CEO vision instead of just endlessly putting out low-level fires.
Now here is your ultimate step-by-step checklist to use during those batch processing windows. It's called the 4D framework. When you open an email, you run it right through this filter. Step 1, do it. If it takes under 2 minutes, just clear it immediately. Step 2, delegate it. Hand it off and empower your team to handle it. Step 3, date it. Snooze it or schedule it for a deep work block later on. Or, step 4, delete it entirely. By applying this checklist strictly, you're touching each input exactly once and relentlessly clearing bottlenecks. This gives your brain permission to close the loop and move on to making actual high-level executive decisions.
Okay, let's look at another game-changing attention habit. Typing versus handwriting. There are actually studies from Princeton and UCLA showing that typing usually just records surface-level facts. You're basically just taking dictation. But writing by hand, that forces you to actually synthesize ideas. It builds deep conceptual understanding. When you're facing a massive corporate dilemma, handwriting is your secret weapon to cut through all the noise. It helps you digest complex market data, and honestly, it helps you figure out where you're actually thinking. And hey, this is exactly why Jeff Bezos famously banned PowerPoint at Amazon, replacing it with 15 minutes of silent memo reading at the start of executive meetings. Because the truth is, bullet points can really hide sloppy thinking. A written narrative demands clarity, which is non-negotiable at the highest levels of management. So, before your next high-stakes conversation or massive decision, just grab a pen. Write down what you know, what you're assuming, and what your next honest action is. I promise you, the fog will lift.
All right, let's shift gears to Section 3, Managing Elite Energy. It is time we completely leave the outdated factory-era mindset in the dust.
Have you ever just stared at a massive project and felt totally frozen? What you need to do is quantize the action. Back in the day, physicist Max Planck discovered that energy moves in tiny, discrete packets called quanta. Think about the Manhattan Project. Splitting the absolute smallest thing, the atom, released world-changing energy. Well, your habits work exactly the same way. The hardest part is simply starting. So, just reduce the required force. Got a massive Q3 report to write? Quantize it. Tell yourself your only goal is to write one single sentence. By quantizing the action, you break that initial friction and unleash a wave of massive momentum. Next up, we really need to talk about your daily schedule and your ultracranian rhythm. Sleep researcher Nathaniel Kleitman discovered that our brains naturally operate in these 80 to 120-minute waves of peak alertness, which are then followed by a dip. So listen to me. If you are crashing hard at 3:30 p.m., that is not a lack of discipline. It is a biological trough demanding immediate recovery.
You have to stop grinding through that dip with forced stimulation. Instead, here's your new daily workflow. You ride the wave with a 90-minute focus block for your deep executive work. Then, and this is the crucial part, you take a 20-minute zero-input recovery block. That means no screens, no scrolling, no emails. True, genuine rest. That is how you optimize your output to lead at an elite level.
And speaking of forced stimulation, let's talk about that 4 p.m. coffee you grabbed to survive the afternoon dip. Did you know that by 9 p.m., 50% of that caffeine is still pumping through your system? By midnight, a quarter of it is literally still lingering in your brain. You might think you're falling asleep just fine, but you are absolutely sabotaging the deep, restorative rest your brain desperately needs to make high-stakes decisions tomorrow.
Which brings us to a very simple number, 6. Your new, absolute non-negotiable rule is a strict 6-hour caffeine cutoff before bed. Because honestly, your most valuable asset as an executive isn't your hustle. It's the quality of your sleep. You need to protect it fiercely.
Finally, let's step into Section 4, the resilient leader. Because while tactical frameworks are great, surviving high-pressure leadership requires a much deeper philosophical grounding. I want you to start practicing this simple habit. Look up. Step outside at night and just look at the sky. The starlight you're seeing took hundreds, sometimes thousands of years to reach your eyes. You're literally looking at ghosts, just memories from the deep past. Your story, your stressful board meeting, those daunting Q4 targets, they're all just a tiny part of a 13.8 billion year universe. When the pressure feels like it's going to crush you, looking up reminds you that our biggest, scariest corporate problems are actually incredibly small.
And then, look down. Look at yourself in the mirror. You are made of the exact same stardust you just looked at in the sky. Think about this. Right now, 30 million cells in your body are being replaced every 8 seconds. You are a walking, breathing, constantly renewing miracle. Connecting that vastness above with the miracle below fosters this intense, unshakable gratitude for simply existing in this exact moment.
Now, why is this sense of awe and gratitude so vital for a leader? Because, look, no matter how perfectly you architect your attention or manage your energy, your systems will inevitably break. Absolute perfection is just impossible. On your worst days, when everything turns into a firefight and your habits completely fall apart, you must practice self-forgiveness. Exhausting yourself by being your own worst prosecutor, that's just a terrible use of your executive energy. Forgive yourself, hit reset, and just start the next day fresh. So I want to leave you with one final provocative question. Are your daily habits actually building the leader you want to become, or are they just helping you barely survive the climb? Don't let the mountain break you. Take back control of your inputs, respect your biological energy, and actively architect your workflow. Implement that 4D framework tomorrow morning. Start acting like the CEO you are meant to be. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.